Everyone is talking about the most recent storm that is brewing around the cast, and whispers have turned into wildfire. According to reports, Tai has revealed something so shocking and explosive that even the most devoted admirers are finding it difficult to comprehend. A late-night video purportedly showing Evelyn and Chantel has unexpectedly gone viral online, and the ensuing drama behind the scenes is unprecedented. Although the exact nature of the video is still unknown, experts believe it shows a moment that ought never to have been public knowledge. Its release coincided with Evelyn's efforts to repair her reputation and disassociate herself from controversies, which is what really set her off. By releasing this purported video, Tai stokes feelings of distrust and treachery. In a matter of minutes, supporters were divided on social media. While some accused Tai of going too far, others wanted answers. Evelyn then lost her temper in the midst of the maelstrom. Several versions describe the ensuing explosion as leaving the set in complete shock and the relationships between these women in shambles. Hey Kay, the question is straightforward now. What actually transpired during that late-night video? And why did Tai decide to make it public at this particular time? Like a spark on dry ground, the rumors around Tai's cataclysmic move started out subtly. However, the fire had spread to every place in a matter of hours. There was more to what she supposedly disclosed than a mere gossip. It was something that threatened to upend the foundation of relationships that were already tense due to mistrust, jealousy, and stress. Evelyn and Chantel's alleged late-night video was not, at least, not as it was portrayed, a carefree moment of friendliness. According to whispers from insiders, Tai's framing gave the impression that the meeting was intended to be secret, something that was intimate, secretive, and possibly treacherous. The response was swift and harsh when the tale initially surfaced on social media. Timelines were inundated with fury, memes, and queries from fans. According to some, Tai was being spiteful and petty, seeking attention at any costs. Others felt deceived by Evelyn and insisted that her portrayal of authority and control had been a charade if this was true. When anonymous sources indicated poor illumination in a few seconds of the purported clip, the emotions became even more ferocious. Quiet conversations and the distinct presence of both women in an environment that differed from the polished persona they typically gave to the public behind the cameras. The cast was flung into disarray. Although Tai had a reputation for stirring things up, it appeared that this time she had gone beyond creating controversy. A far deeper nerve had been struck by her. Having endured weeks of veiled accusations and subtle jabs, Evelyn eventually snapped. Her ire was directed not only at the leaked material, but also at the way it was being used as a weapon. She felt cornered and deceived, not just by Tai, but by the general air of distrust that now accompanied her everywhere. During a normal group gathering, the tension reached a breaking point. It's just another camera moment. Everyone's gaze changed when Tai entered. Everyone knew that something explosive was going to happen because of the audible whispers in the room. Evelyn, who was already pacing with her arms crossed, looked directly at Tai. Like a razor, her voice sliced through the murmuring. Her voice was shaking with barely controlled rage as she replied, "You really think you can destroy me with this nonsense?" Tai didn't flinch. She said calmly and calculatingly as she sat back in her chair and sipped her drink. "Destroy you? No, but expose you? Maybe." The room went silent, and all of the actors appeared to be too scared to breathe. Chantel, who had previously avoided contact, shifted uneasily, a mixture of worry and remorse visible on her face. Tai had gone farther than she had anticipated. The whole burden of suspicion now hovered over her as well. The words, "Don't drag me into this mess," were whispered by Chantel. When Evelyn heard it, however, her rage was immediately diverted. Evelyn yelled, "You think I don't see what's going on?" and pointed at Chantel. "Do you believe that I am unaware of the opinions that others have about us? You ought to have stopped this as soon as it began, but you failed to do so. You allowed it to develop. Now take a look at what's going on." Chantel made an effort to justify herself by claiming that Tai was the one who was manipulating everything, and that she had nothing to do with the leak. However, the harm had already been done. Evelyn's voice trembled between anger and despair, and her tone made it clear that this was more than a clip. The cast was held together by a tenuous web of alliances, trust, and image. Friends and coworkers on the sidelines were in disbelief, while others expressed sympathy and pointed out that anyone would lose their temper under such strain. Others muttered that Evelyn's response just served to highlight her guilt. The rift among fans online was reflected in the division among them. The story quickly took on a life of its own. Debates raged, hashtags went viral, and all of a sudden, everyone had an idea of what the late-night meeting actually meant. Tai performed her role in the midst of the mayhem with unnerving ease. She didn't yell, she didn't speak louder, she just grinned, seemingly content with the chaos she had caused. She gave a cryptic but incisive response when asked directly why. She decided to bring this out at this time. She claimed that truth has its own timing, enabling everyone to speculate as to whether this was a matter of justice, retaliation, or pure amusement. The fact that other circle members began to distance themselves from the group only made matters worse. People who had previously been close to Evelyn started to turn away one by one out of fear of becoming caught in the crossfire. Secrets don't stay hidden forever, Jackie, who is typically outspoken in situations like this, said on the sidelines, a declaration that merely fueled the flames. A dot. The atmosphere in the room changed from shock to outright animosity as the night wore on. Unable to control herself any longer, Evelyn unleashed a physical outburst of pent-up wrath rather than a prepared move. Before anything permanent could happen, security and producers hurried in and pulled her back. But the memory of her yelling in front of everyone was already ingrained in their memories. A dot. Knowing that she had pushed Evelyn to the brink, Tai sat there unfazed and smiling icily. Chantel, on the other hand, sat in horrified silence as she realized her name was now associated with a scandal over which she had no influence. Everyone was left wondering how far this dispute was going to go in the ensuing thick, oppressive stillness. The outpouring of emotions, which seemed to have been building for years, was what really made this moment remarkable, not just the yelling or the accusations. Normally concealed behind a tough facade, Evelyn's vulnerability was now completely exposed. And Tai's ability to take advantage of that vulnerability solidified her position as the catalyst. By the end of the event, everyone was either in love or hate. Reputations had been damaged, alliances had changed, and the tension had escalated beyond repair. Tai calmly fixed her jacket and strolled away as if she had won a war, but Evelyn stormed out, her voice echoing as she cried, "This isn't over!" Tai had been planning all along. As they struggled with the aftermath of a night that none of them would ever forget, the others were left in stunned silence. After Evelyn stormed out, the atmosphere was oppressively tense, uncertain of whether to console Chantel, confront Tai, or just act as if nothing had occurred. The cast members who had seen the explosion remained still. Chantel continued to mumble while slouched in her chair, her face pallid and her hands quivering a little. "I took no action. I am not to blame for this." However, nobody appeared prepared to comfort her, not even her former closest friends and family. Everyone knew that being associated with this controversy, even in an unfair way, had the power to alter everything. A dot. But Tai seemed to flourish in the quiet she had engendered. With a grin that never went away, she slowly got to her feet and spoke to the assembly as though she had just finished a perverse sermon. "I didn't make this up," she stated in a chilly, serene tone. Jackie, who is usually eager to join the heart of drama, suddenly broke the stillness by saying, I didn't force anyone into that room. All I did was shine a light on what people were trying to keep in the dark." Her confident tone sent chills down the spines of those listening. "Tai, you like to cause trouble, but are you aware of what you just did? This is more than simply a mess. It's explosive." Evelyn feels humiliated. We're all caught in the middle of Chantel's name being dragged through the mud. Are you prepared for the next step? Tai cocked an almost amused head. "I'm prepared. However, the true query is, are they?" She indicated Chantel with her hand. Chantel's eyes were captured on camera crying. In an attempt to maintain her calm, she wiped them away quickly. However, her quiet was more powerful than her words. The repercussions quickly spread outside that room. Blogs and gossip sites quickly seized upon the news and began analyzing it from every perspective. May inquired, what was in the clip? Was it more than simply a casual get-together? The strain on all parties concerned increased as the rumors spread by the minute. Some of Evelyn's friends discreetly acknowledged that something about the situation didn't set well with her, while others attempted to defend her by claiming she was being singled out. Around the time the footage was allegedly recorded, Evelyn was spotted leaving a hotel late at night, according to one insider. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the rumor raised suspicions to the point where she was unable to avoid the story being spun around her, constructed with her in mind. Following the outburst, Evelyn herself stopped posting, making statements, and making appearances, and the flames was simply stoked by that quiet. Her silence was interpreted by some fans as an admission of guilt, while others begged her to confess the truth. Chantel, however, posted an ambiguous statement about loyalty and treachery in an attempt to head off the controversy. However, it merely raised additional questions rather than putting an end to the speculations. The two women's forced appearance marked a turning point. Even before they entered the same room at another function they attended together, the atmosphere was intolerable. Instantly, whispers spread. People were watching to see if Chantel would eventually defend herself or if Evelyn would publicly confront her. The cameras were prepared. The impending storm nearly made the makers delighted. The mood changed when Evelyn eventually showed up. She didn't acknowledge the stares or spoke to anyone. She went directly to the bar, placed her drink order, and stood by herself with a straight back and a blank expression on her face. Knowing that every look directed at her was laced with criticism, Chantel, seated across the room, kept her eyes down and fidgeted with her phone. When Tai walked in, looking like she owned the situation, the hush was broken. She moved to the middle of the room without thinking and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Will we all continue to act as though nothing occurred? Or are we going to discuss it at last? As she slammed her glass against the bar, the sound reverberating like a gunshot, Evelyn turned to face Tai, her voice trembling with rage. Her remarks broke the atmosphere and drew everyone's attention to her. You have no right to destroy my life and then pretend that this is a game. Just because you're resentful doesn't give you the right to bring Chantel into this. You are pitiful. Tai's smile remained constant. I'm not the one that had to sneak about late at night, but that may be pitiful. I didn't leave them with questions I couldn't respond to. The tension reached its climax when the crowd gasped. At last, Chantel stood up, trying to defend herself, her voice breaking. There was nothing to conceal. Nothing took place. You are aware that this is all being twisted. However, in contrast to Tai's unwavering composure and Evelyn's raging fury, her comments seemed feeble. A dot. Nobody anticipated the moment when Chantel abruptly turned to Evelyn and yelled, "You think this is just about Tai? You've treated me like I'm disposable for years, like my reputation doesn't matter. I've always defended you, but where were you when I needed you?" Her voice cracked as tears ran down her cheeks, and Evelyn appeared surprised for the first time. The altercation had evolved beyond a leaked video, was about relationships formed and dissolved, about years of bitterness, and about trust that had never truly existed. No one could have written the visceral emotions that flooded the room, which was electrifying. Stunned by Chantel's abrupt outburst, people murmured to one another, recognizing that the story might be more complicated than Tai attempting to ruin Evelyn. Perhaps there were deeper cracks that had been waiting to burst for this particular moment. The crowd broke up into whispers as security stepped in to try to stop another violent outburst. Some departed with the belief that Evelyn was concealing something. Some saw Chantel's suffering as evidence that she had been wrongfully drawn into a conflict that wasn't hers to resolve. As well as Tai. As though she had just planned it, she left with the same icy grin. The ideal storm. A dot. Confusion, heartache, and questions that only got louder by the hour marked the end of the night. Nobody knew whether or not the women could bounce back from this. However, there was no denying that the issue had escalated. It was beyond their wildest dreams. The consequences of that, the tumultuous night did not go away in silence. As the hours stretched into days, the storm only got louder, if anything. Every word, gesture, and silence between Evelyn, Tai, and Chantel was being analyzed by individuals everywhere you looked. Videos of the altercation were posted on social media, slowed down, and replayed with captions such as, "Watch her eyes." Hear or listen to her tone at this exact moment. Fans engaged in a never-ending debate, with some defending Evelyn as a woman unfairly and others focusing on others, claiming that Chantel's emotional collapse was evidence of something more serious. Others acknowledged that Tai's tactics were harsh, but they nevertheless applauded her for revealing the truth. The women themselves were disintegrating in various ways behind the scenes. Evelyn distanced herself from the public by turning down interviews, refusing to go to events, and dismissing the producers who pleaded with her to at least make a statement. According to whispers from people close to her, she was losing her mind, unable to trust anyone, and certain that every friend or ally might be covertly providing information to the bloggers. She was a ticking time bomb, according to one insider, who would pace her house at night while mentally reliving every aspect of the story. Meanwhile, Chantel made a valiant effort to take back control of her image. She went live with a firm voice and red-rimmed eyes, declaring, "I have nothing to hide. This story about me is unjust and painful. I've always attempted to be helpful, but suddenly I'm portrayed as the antagonist in someone else's tale." Some supporters supported her wholeheartedly, but others criticized her every statement, calling her too evasive, overly defensive, and lacking in emotion. Her attempt to minimize the harm simply served to further polarize public opinion. Then Tai arrived. She appeared to be relishing the pandemonium, in contrast to the other two. She gave subtle interviews in which she alluded to future developments, but did not confirm anything. Let's say she smiled mischievously as she informed one gossip host. The entire thing isn't even in the tape. The true tea has not yet been seen by the public. Her enigmatic comments fueled a flurry of rumors. The show's producers spotted a chance they couldn't pass on as everyone speculated about what else she would reveal. In an attempt to settle or at least reveal the truth, they set up a sit-down meeting with the goal of capturing the unfiltered feelings on tape. The tension was oppressive when the women were eventually gathered in a safe environment. Chantel's shaking hands, Evelyn's clenched jaw, and Tai's arrogant face were all captured on camera. In an attempt to start off gently, the moderator asked Chantel how she felt about being pulled into a scandal that she maintained had nothing to do with her. "I feel betrayed, feel humiliated. I've always been loyal, and now I'm paying for something. I didn't even do." Chantel's voice broke as she responded, and her tears were sincere. However, Tai smirked and leaned forward. "Faithful? Really? Because faithful individuals don't slink around in secret. Loyal people avoid settings that seem a bit too comfy in the middle of the night." Evelyn's eyes were blazing into Tai as her face turned red. She spat, "You're disgusting. To stay relevant, you have to distort everything. You don't care who you ruin as long as you're in the news, even though Chantel is innocent in all of this." Surprisingly, though, Chantel didn't appear appreciative of the defense. Rather, she faced Evelyn and raised her voice. "Harmless, do you understand what it's like to have your mess drag my name? You pretend that I'm safe, yet I'm drowning as you remain silent." The room exploded. No one could determine for a minute whether Chantel was angry with Evelyn for not protecting her from the consequences or at Tai for spreading false information. Years of suppressed anxiety erupted into the open as the two women's eyes met. A dot. Satisfied. Treachery might be far closer than everyone thinks. And with feelings still running hot, that idea has supporters in complete disbelief. The ensemble as a whole appears to be on the verge of disintegrating. Friendships are broken, and allegiances are changing. What happens next, though? Will Chantel disclose who the person she alluded to is? Will Evelyn discover who set her up in her social circle? Or will Tai eventually present the alleged evidence she has been hinting at? The next episode seems like it might blow everything apart, and the stress is only getting worse. We'd like to hear from you now. Which side of this convoluted, complex story are you on? Is Chantel's emotional defense credible? Or do you think Tai is correct, and that the narrative is more complicated than she is acknowledging? When Evelyn finds out, who actually betrayed her, how do you think she will respond? This conversation is only beginning, so please share your ideas in the comments section below. If you enjoyed joining us in the drama, be remembered to hit the like button. For more stunning updates, shocking revelations, and behind the scenes, analysis on all the craziness, don't forget to subscribe. I promise you won't be able to express what's going to happen next, so turn on notifications so you don't miss a single twist.